Hi, folks. We'll just get started. Again, my name is Mark Stevens, Managing Partner at Enable Health. And one of the areas that we focus on in innovation is an area that I'm sure everyone worldwide is focusing on, and that's artificial intelligence. It's funny, you know, when you get into AI, you realize it's been around working with us and for us for decades. But its explosion on the scene is real, it's important, it has consequences, it has wonderful opportunities, and we're fortunate to have one of the world's leading experts in AI and its application in healthcare with us today, Tom Lawry. Tom is going to lead a fantastic panel, as you can see, with again, our trademark wit and wisdom, and we're going to look at different perspectives of intelligent aging as it relates to AI being applied as a technology. And you'll find what we'll do within this forum, we're specifically looking at entrepreneurial characteristics and how innovation is driven by individuals in this space and elsewhere. And Tom is uniquely qualified to get that information from these wonderful entrepreneurs. Tom right now is managing partner at his own consulting firm, Second City Technology. But really, it's been for about 2 decades that he's run AI and healthcare globally for Microsoft. And it's where he's not only witnessed history, but helped make it. I'll let Tom introduce his panelists, but again, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Tom Lawry.
I guess I'll use this one. Hey, everyone. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Boy, that was pretty enthusiastic. I'm impressed. Must be having strong coffee today. So I am Tom Lawry, Managing Director of Second Century Tech, latest book, Hacking Healthcare. I'm mainly your docent, your facilitator. We've got some really great panelists that I'm going to bring up in just a moment. I have exactly 3 slides, and then we're going to bring the panelists up. So my latest book is Hacking Healthcare. I bring this up, 1, because I'm a shameless promoter of my books, but 2, probably my favorite chapter that I got to write, I called Intelligent Aging as Healthcare's Moonshot. And it was my attempt to frame all of the issues and opportunities and then go on to talk about probably a lot of the work that many of you may be doing. I know some of our panelists are on the front lines to do. But, I mean, essentially, we have this great opportunity, which is why you're all here on longevity. Artificial intelligence data, I think, is going to play a key role as something that we bring in behind a lot of the work that you and others are doing. So this was a great example. There was an article in Nature last month. Anyone who wants it, just give me your card. I'll send it to you. But I thought this graphic was great because it really was a great representation of how digital and AI is going to create almost this ambient environment for intelligence and a lot of things that are going to make it much better, not just to increase health span, but truly start moving towards increasing the health span, the quality of what people are doing and living, courtesy of digital and AI. So with that, I'm just going to end and call up our panelists. I'm a geeky guy. One of my favorite books is something called AI 2041, Kai-Fu Lee's former Microsoft, Google, and Apple exec. But this is a book where he basically writes about how the world will be in 2041, courtesy of AI, and a great book, 500-page read. This is the sentence that caught my eye. When we look back in the year 2041, we'll likely see healthcare as the industry most transformed by AI. And I believe that. We're already seeing a lot of it happening, and the panelists that I'm bringing up are actually on the front lines of doing that. So with that, can I please ask our panel to come up and be seated? I guess it's on. Hey, everyone.
Hi. Hello.
All right, let me do quick introductions. First of all, we have Brittany Cassin, CEO and co-founder of Did You Care Realize, and you're going to tell us all about that. But former life science manufacturer executive, I can't believe 20 years, but The cool factor, and there are many, but Brittany was able to launch the first ever digital medicine system that was actually approved by the FDA in the United States, which is no small feat. CEO and co-founder of DigiCare Realized, focused on brain health and AI. We're going to talk more about that in a second. Next, we have Jasmine, who you probably get the award for longest distance traveled up here. And
Well, not quite this time around, but
well, so you I think came out of London, but you actually base when you actually go home in Hawaii.
right.
So anyway, Jasmine serves as Chief Executive Officer, and it's Rejuve, right? Thank you.
Rejuve.AI.
Rejuve.AI, pioneering longevity research company leveraging AI to understand and reverse human aging. I want to hear a lot more about that. Great background, everything from senior medical coder to a lot of cool stuff in the Web3 space through Singularity. Under Jasmine's leadership, Rejuve, and you're going to hopefully talk about it, has launched the RJV token, and you are very close to a new longevity app that I want to hear all about. And then finally, we have Dr. John Sheenan. And you know, it's funny, John and I, if you want to do things on LinkedIn, John is a guy to know. I've been trading information and following John for I don't know how long online. This is the first time we ever actually met. So I was really excited to come and meet Dr. Sheenan. So anyway, Dr. Sheenan's a graduate of RCSI as a radiologist, fellowship at Northwestern Memorial in Chicago, which for those who know the United States is one of the top academic medical centers in America. Currently a practicing consulting radiologist, BlackRock Health, clinical director of radiology at the Hermitage Clinic. Here in Ireland, he's also the clinical vice chair of the Digital Health Association. You wear many hats, and he brought toys that we're going to talk about in a minute. So anyway, that is our esteemed panel, and maybe, John, I'll start with you. So when we talk about longevity, there's so many things, and just even looking at those who are out in the exhibit hall that hopefully you all will go out and look at, it's everything from AI and data to basically food and supplements as medicine. So the whole field is broad, and yet at the heart of so many things is that practicing clinician. So tell us some about your work, and particularly as a radiologist, but just in general, how you throughout all of these things with things like digital health that eventually contributes to the whole area of longevity.
Sure. Well, thanks, everybody. Lovely to be here with you this morning, and thank you, Tom. I think, you know, healthcare is a fascinating industry. It's a privilege, actually, to be practicing within it. And my own personal experience is kind of four-dimensional. I'm a patient myself. I do suffer from chronic pain. I could do with some of that therapy that was talked about. I'm a clinician, a passionate technologist, and also an entrepreneur. I think trying to understand medicine really involves a huge number of sectors that require the public sector, the private sector, the citizen, and the patient or the citizens themselves to be all part of the solution and identifying what the problems are. And what we use as technology in our sphere is really only part of it, and it really comes down to the patient being at the center and all of you guys, people, because what is required to solve these very, very complex problems in healthcare requires Open Innovation 2.0, which is the combination of a lot of things before digital. It's high trust networks, it's high value networks, it's shared values and outcomes, plus the digital technology that actually enables a shared, meaningful outcome that benefits all. So it's very complex, and I think at the coalface, you appreciate that. And As a radiologist, it's a great privilege because since 1995, I think, Tom, there's been something like 500 plus approved FDA products, AI-approved products, and approximately 75% of those are radiology-based. So we kind of have this first exposure or first mover advantage in that. So kind of while I'm a radiologist and I understand the head to the toe, it does open up the whole world of medicine to me, which obviously I think really importantly should focus on like longevity in terms of health span and lifespan.
Yeah, no, I want to come back to that because radiology is like the super hot spot when it comes to specialties and AI and adoption rates. And there's a lot of talk about it putting radiologists out of business, but I'm going to get your opinion on that in a minute. Brittany, given your background and current healthcare focus, we heard talk about intelligent aging, so let's start with, well, what does that mean to you?
Oh gosh, well to me, it's all about brain health. And I think you're hearing a lot of importance in finding objective ways to really measure what that means. And if you think about it, the organ reporting is actually the organ in question. And I think that's where the opportunity is when it comes to intelligence or AI approaches or technology and data-driven approaches. And we see that right now today it's very subjective. And the implication of that, I think, starts to come through when you look at Alzheimer's disease and related dementias as we get older. Right now, if you look at it takes about 2 to 5 years to actually get a diagnosis. And I think part of it is that we're looking at really subjective ways. So again, I think it really, for me, might be a little biased, but really it's about brain health and then being able to innovate or modernize care there.
Yeah, there's so many aspects of when you say brain health, what that means. I'm going to come back to that. Jasmine, I'm fascinated by what you're doing. I had a chance to troll through your website, and I know this isn't a technical crowd. We could really geek out on Bayesian logic and neural networks, but I won't. But seriously, as I look at what you're doing, and I want you to kind of give us the explanation. Everyone's talking about AI today. You cannot pick up anything without hearing and seeing about AI. And yet, so it's the shiny object in many ways. And I love what I think you're doing, and you're going to tell us where, so often we talk about AI, but really at the heart of that, AI to work has to have data, it has to be organized, it has to be aligned in a way that anything like a neural network or any form of AI only works based on the data. And so tell us some about what you're actually doing, because I'm just fascinated by what I think you're doing.
Right. So basically, we are creating a mobile application to begin with, where people all over the world can contribute their personal health data across multimodal sources. So it can be from cognitive to clinical-based to wearable devices. Everybody's probably got a smartwatch these days. That's one of our popular ones. And us lifestyle and survey data. EEG signals, we plan to expand the category to so many types. And using some larger existing data sets plus the one that we're building, be able to make AI inferences and personalized wellness and longevity protocols on the individual level. So this even includes whole genome sequencing and DNA methylation data as well. We have a couple of really great partners on that front, on so many different types of data that we are combining together to be able to make truly personalized and individualized insights and plans to extend your longevity and for people everywhere, not just in the most privileged countries. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, I want you to expand a little more. So is the focus mainly on consumer-driven, researchers? I mean, tell us. I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around everything you just said.
Right. Yes. So we call it a decentralized longevity research network. So it does involve all of those players. In the beginning, we are focusing on the consumer, patient level side, because that's building up the database and being able to reach people's lives individually. But at the same time, we are connecting with clinicians and researchers as well, because that's important for being able to continue to make our systems more and more intelligent. Of course, we've got amazing AI researchers and data scientists on the team already, but we want to connect with more of them and be able to drive actually simulations of the human body and of individuals as well, to be able to do even more insights and synthetic clinical trials and everything like that.
And then finally, so as I understand it, you are like super close to launching this app. So tell us a little more about that.
Yes, we've been working on it for a long time. So the core algorithm working in there is a Bayesian, as you mentioned. So it has a bunch of statistical meta-analysis in order to give you, kind of a surface-level personalized insight on areas that you need to focus on and improve. And we also give you a biological age calculation inferred on the same way. So the plan is just to keep on layering on more and more advanced AI techniques and data sources to make that calculation more and more precise and the insights more detailed and rich as well. And our app is slated to launch in November of this year. And it's in beta right now on both iOS and Android platforms. We've been developing them in tandem, so you can already check it out and kind of follow our progress as we near the launch.
Many more questions, but I'll come back to you. John, you and I were talking earlier. Most of your answers almost come in sets of 4. So, we were talking about the 4 Copernican shifts in healthcare, which I think does relate to, eventually longevity. So tell me more about the shifts in healthcare and what you're seeing and why it's happening.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of us probably appreciate that we're kind of moving from healthcare 2.0 to healthcare 3.0, as Peter Attia writes in his recent book, Outlive, which is a pretty good read, actually, if you get a chance. But the 4 Copernican shifts that we're undergoing in healthcare at the moment are very much coming out of great need. We're sinking so fast that incremental improvements just won't cut it anymore. So the 4 shifts are we're moving from a illness system to a wellness system, i.e. rather than treat, we're trying to prevent. We're moving from a doctor knows best to a patient knows best, so we're democratizing knowledge, which is right. We're moving from a purely hospital-based system to a much more integrated community-based system, including your home. And finally, we're moving from the physical to the virtual. And I think we need to do this because of the need to do things better, faster, and cheaper. There's budgetary constraints, there's increasing demographic problems, and as you guys will all be talking about over the next couple of days, is we've got, as Peter Attia says, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse chomping down at us. So, 100 years ago, I'd probably be gone at 50. I'm now 51, so I'm kind of living the dream at the moment, and I hopefully will live to 70 or 80. But the diseases have gone from acute dying to chronic dying. And those 4 horsemen are cardiovascular disease, as Brittany talks about, neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's. The third one is cancer. And the fourth one is, very important but not talked about enough, is type 2 diabetes / metabolic dysfunction. So there's just a couple of 4s there to remember, but they're all really, really important, and they will enable us to do things better. And that's part of our Digital Health Association Manhattan Manifesto drive, which I can talk about later.
Well, why don't you just briefly, now that you mention it, and by the way, I just counted 2 sets of 4s in your answer, so I told you things in 4s. No, tell us, no, let's just cut to that. So you and Professor Curley are heading to New York next month, so on the UNGA assembly. So tell us about that, and then last year, the output of that was this thing called the Manhattan Manifesto. So explain that, please.
Sure. So Professor Martin Curley is former Senior Vice President of Intel for about 20 years, ran 50 labs in Europe, and he then ran the HSC's digital transformation. That's our National Health Service. And he and I have kind of got to know each other pretty well. We're known as the 2 Ronnies. Those are 2 comedians in the UK. But we do a lot of work together, and we've come under the umbrella of the Digital Health Association, which is really a group of like-minded individuals from that quadruple helix that I talked about earlier on. So the public sector, the private sector, academia, and the citizen, whereby we're all working together, similar mindset. And we had a co-chairing and co-convening last year in New York at the UN General Assembly Health Summit for 2 days. And the output of that was the Manhattan Manifesto. And we're doing that again in a couple of weeks' time. But if I kind of summarize, and you're more than welcome, I can share it with you, the kind of way I would summarize the Manhattan Manifesto is that we want to empower people and eliminate disparities and leverage digital technology and data to provide evidence-based outcomes, which all lead us to have healthier, longer, I think importantly, happier lives. So that's what we're kind of about, and it's kind of based on the Solvay conference, which Bohr and Marie Curie and Einstein, they used to gather for physics and engineering every 2 years in a certain hotel. So we invite 50 people from around the world, leaders in their field, to talk about the big problem, healthcare.
Yeah, it's a great think tank, and it's definitely something that is worth a read, so you can point people to that. That's great. Okay, Brittany, I'm going to come back to you. So you talk some about your focus, and obviously every time I hear you talk about brain health, I see the passion. But you know, we're here to talk about AI and how it's being used on longevity. So to take us a little deeper on just what you're seeing or what you're doing as far as using AI to advance the cause of brain health.
Yeah, of course. I think one of the things, having a lot of experience in health tech, and some of the examples in my career, we've succeeded, and some of them not so much. And I think part of it is really understanding the problem that you want to solve. When you look at the U.S. health system, we have a big problem right now in being able to implement early detection. You know, we have an overworked healthcare force. We kind of have a topic that people don't necessarily like to talk about when it comes to their own brain health. And again, what's happening is we're seeing delays in diagnosis, which is delaying interventions. So really the opportunity that we're seeing with AI, and this is something that we're doing at DigiCare Realized, is that we're implementing an AI-powered approach to early detection. So the way our technology works is that we would basically collaborate with a health system and deploy our technology into an EMR platform, like let's say Epic or Cerner. And we've trained our algorithm to comb through patient health records. One of the things that's unique about our algorithm is that we've trained it on natural language. So we're actually reviewing the vast medical notes found in the patient health records, and including looking at other categories of data, such as medications, diagnosis codes, and then demographics. When you put all that together, because you did mention it's about data, we start to power our model, and we're starting to see an ability to identify those unrecognized cases of dementia with nearly 80% performance accuracy a year in advance. And when you start to see the importance of this with emerging treatments, these treatments and interventions are best administered at the earlier stages of the disease. And now with our prediction horizon, this gives us an opportunity to identify those individuals at the right time of where they are in their brain health journey. And so really this is an opportunity for us to identify and not have individuals perhaps who need extra cognitive care phase out of an innovative treatment.
So it's proactively kind of assessing, predicting propensity, and then alerting the right people to start doing that advanced care planning sooner, rather than waiting until, well, what we traditionally see in healthcare in many parts of the world. Jasmine, back to you. Unless you had, no, you.
No, that was great. That was thank you.
All right. Well, no, I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah, no.
I'm thinking more about what you're doing and what you're bringing to market. I kind of get around and I get to see a lot of things. I don't know that there's anything else out there quite like what you're doing. And so my next question is, what's the genesis of this? I mean, there's so many people out there doing apps, and I'm looking at what you are doing and just explain. So what's the genesis of how this got started?
Yeah, actually it is pretty interesting because we are a spinoff of a larger entity called SingularityNet, which focuses on making beneficial artificial general intelligence. So, you know, the famed AGI, pretty much trying to prevent Terminator scenarios and whatnot, and instilling very compassionate, human-centric values into the AI that we're building. And so Rejuve is one of those, and we're reaching into the health and longevity sector. And so what better way to infuse human values into AI system than trying to make people live longer, right? Not exterminate us. So that's how it began.
So you're working against the narrative that's out there in the media right now, where everything I read, I don't know about you, but everything you pick up, first we're all going to lose our jobs, and then it's going to enslave all of us as humans. That doesn't sound like a very good scenario to me. No, I'm kidding, but I think in general we need to be changing the narrative, and not only change the narrative, say everyone's talking about the existential threat, and I'm here to say, well, we need to factor in the existential opportunities to be doing good. And so I'm talking about that. You're actually putting it into practice, which I think is really cool. Okay, general question. Anyone can jump in first. So when it comes to longevity, what are the most exciting things you're either seeing that's being done besides what you guys are doing? Or what are you working on? Or what are the things you're not seeing that should be done when it comes to longevity that people could get excited about? Did I stump the panel?
I guess.
All very polite.
Sure, yeah. So I think
Thank you.
maybe installing longevity as kind of more of a cultural theme, starting from primary education onward. It just seems, for instance, one of the challenges of the app that we're launching is being able to communicate these very technical, high-level concepts to a general audience, like the hallmarks of aging, for instance, epigenetic alterations and genomic instability. These words are really big and scary to people, and, they don't quite understand what it means. And I think that, holistically, as, society, we can begin to install such ideas at much younger ages, and just in more that we do, that living long and living a healthy long life becomes more of a virtue, than kind of it seems these days, where people just want to indulge in things that we know aren't healthy, but we just can't get enough of. The value system can begin to shift that, and we can highlight more ways that you can have fun and enjoy life and have a balance, and still be able to preserve your intercellular status as well.
Yeah, I think to build on that, when you look at a lot of the information, and decision intelligence is just that, it's knowledge. Knowledge is really powerful. However, unless you actually take action and do something different, or change your own behavior, you're not going to see an impact of change. And so oftentimes, like in our use case, I get asked, is your goal to improve detection rates? And I'm like, no, not really. Our goal is actually to improve a diagnosis. And in doing so, what we want to be able to do is make sure that everyone has a brain health action plan that works for them. And so really, I think the goal is, how do you take information and translate it so in our case people can be self-starters in their own care. And Jasmine, you're touching on a lot of points, but I think we both agree, and John too, it's you have to make things to create that change, and that people do want to do it consistently over time, so that way we see that impact for health, to basically create pathways for healthy aging.
Yeah. Just listening to both of you talk, I have the privilege of being an advisor to healthcare organizations around the world on use of AI in health and medicine. And one of the biggest factors that I often have to work with clinical and other leaders on is I don't know how else to put it, but getting people to think differently. So I'm listening to the two of you talk, and like back to brain health, just listening to you, when I think about the traditional approach typical provider organizations take, we've kind of settled into we wait for certain things to happen, then there's a diagnosis, and what you're talking about, you're thinking differently, but as I'm listening, you're both are saying, no, let's raise the bar. Let's take this traditional thinking that most people don't even, it's like, well, this is just the way it is, and you're saying, no, we got to think differently to raise the bar. And the technology, to me, that's the enabler. It's not the thing that solves the problem as much as we bring it in behind those humans to augment those things, which is what you've been talking about, John. So I'm going to go back to you, John, because I know you also...
And actually, Tom, can I kind of just reinforce kind of what you guys have said, kind of in a very simple way? At the core, we all hear this word data, but data, as you said, is information. And information for us as human citizens is something that we can make a decision upon. And I heard this thing once, that the facts are always friendly, whether you like it or not. It's a really, really good term. But what's linked to data and information and facts for us as humans are emotions, and it's actually emotions that actually make us get up out of bed, or go out for a party. So I think making an emotional connection so that we have this high tech but high touch, because once that emotional connection is made with a patient or a citizen, because you want somebody to be actually not a patient ideally, but there's a spectrum, is that you can actually create that emotional link that you've gone for your screening in a very user-friendly environment whereby technology is enabling it. So we're all used to a very digitally enabled environment to order a taxi, to order food, to order stuff off Amazon. We really don't have that for healthcare. We're kind of preconditioned that it's going to be pretty crap and difficult. So we need to, have all of these user interfaces that actually make it easier, that we get this data that makes an emotional connection, that we then say, actually, we want to try and avoid those 4 horsemen. Or actually, I have some of them, but I want to treat it better. So,
No, I'm hearing so many things, and I'm watching the clock because I'd love to riff on so many things, but I'm going to move on. But I'm just going to say, John, one of the things I'm thinking now is I know your work, I know your background, and earlier you were talking about we and how the health system is moving in the right direction, and I'll put it out as rhetorical, and maybe we can come back to it, but. To put you on the spot, as a physician, you're kind of a Renaissance guy, because when I'm hearing you say we as the system's moving in that direction, at least in my experience, I think the good news is you're right, but it's uneven. And I would just say not everyone in the traditional systems think the way you do. And I'll just put a period there for you to think about it, then everyone else to think about. And I wish we could just, maybe at the bar tonight we can all gather and get your opinions on that. So I want to throw out another kind of broad question for anyone to take on. So maybe it's out there and it's a real term, but I kind of made this up, of longevity equity. So within AI and health and medicine, the question I'm always pushing on is, will AI be a force of good for all people or some people? And unfortunately, the data is showing right now that a lot of the biases and inequities in the real world are crossing over to the digital through things like algorithms. So as I think about, like in America where I'm from, certain populations like African Americans, their health status, their lifespan is lower, and the data shows it's not a genetic issue. We have things like social determinants of health where 2 people can be the exact age. If you look at their EMR, their data is exactly the same, and yet studies show that living as little as 10 miles apart affects their longevity. So as I think about all of the movement that you're working on, probably everything that many of you are working on, the question is, as we're making gains, is that being applied to benefit all or some? And if there are issues with that, what should we do to fix it? How's that? Who wants to start?
Well, I guess I should, since one of our mantras of our entity is longevity for all. And I guess it's maybe a good place to plug some Web3 as well. So blockchain technology is kind of enabling a wider spread of different technologies all across the world, including places like Africa. While the actual, infrastructural, and monetary challenges remain ongoing, at least when it comes to availability and access and education about longevity, we can already do that, through mobile apps, through blockchain, being able to lower the access barrier to genome sequencing, to different supplements and wearable devices, so that we can get data from more regions and more people, because then we can take that data and be able to generate this and say, to the governments and to the different pillars of society, hey, like, we have a real problem here, we have the numbers, we have the facts, let's actually act on this and start improving the outcomes, from the youth onwards.
Well, to build on that, I love the question, because I think at the end of the day, are we going to be satisfied when we have the $100,000 Tesla, or when there's the Model 3 and everyone has an opportunity to drive the innovation? And I think what drives me, and I love the opportunity that health technologies, AI, all of it brings, but the mental image in my head is actually my grandmother. Now, I know it's a little misleading with my Irish Scottish last name of Cassin. I married into it, so thank you. But I'm actually Hispanic. And my own grandmother was Spanish speaking only. And unless her doctor spoke Spanish, she wouldn't get a cognitive assessment that day, let alone an opportunity for perhaps to go into a drug trial. So I think when we start to bring different lived experiences into the equation of healthcare and innovation, what you kind of start to see is a definition of how we want to tackle a problem differently. And I like to think that we can use technology to create healthcare to be more equitable and accessible. And so that's kind of how I choose, I guess, my superpower to really innovate healthcare in this way.
Okay. I'm watching the time. We've got a little less than 10 minutes. I'm thinking hard about this next question, and I'm looking at you and Jasmine. You may never come on stage with me again, but I'm looking at the two of you, and this is totally off topic, but I'm sitting here with two female founders. That's kind of unusual. And then you said it, I'm sitting here looking at a Hispanic female founder. You set it yourself up.
I said it.
When you look at the data out there about founders and funding and everything else, you two are unusual. What's that like?
Well, I guess we should probably just state the data, right? So I think you start to see that 2% of venture funding actually goes to minority and female founders. That's it, 2%.
You don't have to respond, you know.
I know, like, this is also, a good moment for, some Web3 stuff, because being that I am in that industry, I find that it is a lot more inclusive, and that you can just, be your individual strange you without being, as judged as much. Like, I feel as though if I was in a more traditional industry, it might have been a lot harder to kind of climb to the top. But being able to be like in the world of cryptocurrency, I'm able to just be myself and, draw people in that way, and it's really cool. So I love the industry.
I think this has been a very interesting journey for me. I think historically, you mentioned it, like I've worked for life science companies, mostly pharmaceutical companies, and I don't think I really thought too much about what it meant to be a female leader in those companies, let alone Hispanic. And what I would say is it really does make a difference when you decide to start your own company and kind of take this journey as a founder. And that's where I actually had to kind of go through my own transformation and really embrace my lived experience and bring that as part of my narrative, because I realized it's actually the subject matter expertise that I have in healthcare commercialization, and yes, really unique experience with health tech and in brain health, but it's the lived experiences that I'm able to kind of bring and drive our strategy of our company and really kind of tackle these tough problems. So while part of this is something that we're going to have to navigate as female founders and minority founders, I think it actually makes us a little bit unique in terms of being able to foster a different level of diversity and innovation. So if companies or venture funds are not be curious about us, I just really question, what are you curious about? Is it the same? And at the end of the day, how is that really going to drive the impact that we want to make? So it really is a time for all of us to be a little bit more curious and lean in.
Tom, can I just say, I feel privileged to be sitting between you with two incredible female startups. My mother had no education, and she came from nowhere, and she is partly responsible, if not mostly responsible, for where I am today. And I have two beautiful young daughters, and I hope that the world that you're plowing is going to enable them to have a stronger, longer, happier life in whatever they decide to do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
And I would just do a shout out to everyone else out there. If, it's amazing to me. I spent 7 years in the venture-backed startup world doing 2 companies, and, I'm an old white guy, so it was easier. But when I was in that startup mode, and maybe you were out there too, the number of people who come up to you and say, well, I have an idea, or I've thought about starting a company, versus those of you on the front lines actually doing it. It just shout out. Anyone who goes through that, who decides not only that you have an idea, but you actually carry through, that's huge, and it's so unusual, and it's like good for you, because the best ideas typically they don't come from the big companies, they come from the little ones like you. So with that, any other parting thoughts? We've got about 2 minutes. John?
I was hoping to raise Jasmine's heart rate. Is that okay?
Are you going to play? Oh, that's right, you brought toys.
This is Jasmine's probably going to think the Terminator has arrived on stage to destroy her. But this is just I think seeing is believing, whether it's our smart watches. This actually watch nearly saved my life back in February. I came off my bike, had a bad injury, and within 2 seconds, I think my wife, my best friend, and my doctor got a message I had a bad fall, SOS, and the map of where I was. Then the ambulance service called and said, hey, John, are you okay? This is a HoloLens device. It's actually a device that's software and hardware that was developed by Microsoft. And it's an augmented reality device. So I can see you, but also I could see x-rays or images or have a conversation with anybody. So this sort of technology, which is partly AI enabled, is going to allow to have me or anybody, whether you're an advanced nurse practitioner, a paramedic, a GP, or a consultant, bring that expertise anywhere across this city, across the country, or indeed across the world, whereby people can talk, see each other, and have a meaningful impact, and particularly in a world where there are scarce resources. And just finally, just the other toy I brought along is this is a butterfly AI-enabled ultrasound probe. I can plug this into my iPhone or iPad, and I can ultrasound any part of my body. And on the Saturday morning that I got this, I lay in bed for about 3 hours, and I ultrasounded everything. Now, we're not going to get into that.
We're not going there, man.
But just to tell you what AI did, I put it up here over my heart, and it told me how to angle it, and it calculated my ejection fraction was like 74%. And then my daughter was watching Netflix. She's 10, one of my beautiful daughters. She probably had loads of Diet Coke. I put it over her bladder. It did a 3D scan and then produced this 4D rotating image of her bladder. So that's just to give you the idea that this device can be used in a very expensive intensive care unit in the Cleveland Clinic, or in a small hut in the middle of nowhere in Sudan, and everywhere in between, and bring that technology in a very meaningful way in the hands of anybody, anytime, anywhere. So,
very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Okay.
Amazing. I just wanted to ask, is that on?
Okay. I just feel our pulse rate.
I had a question. Are these already commercially available? And
absolutely, yeah. And in fact, actually, I was hoping to get delivery today of the new GE one, which is actually a handheld one with Bluetooth capability, so there's actually no cable. And I can hold it and have somebody in the Cleveland Clinic looking at my images of the patient and say, that's that, and actually, if I'm doing a procedure, saying, actually just angle it this way and go in that way. So that's phenomenal. So there's a whole spectrum of uses of that type of technology.
It's such a cool time to be doing what we do.
Yeah.
And we're out of time. So John, Jasmine, Brittany, thank you so much. And I assume you're all willing to stick around if people want to come up and talk?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, with that, it's 11:30. We were told to go to 11:30, so I think we're spot on timing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Cheers.